the music people just did my whole talk. So what I have to say is a little extraneous. Gosh, this is when I would like to be an octopus. I have to hold this. I have to find these. I have to read this. Anyway, I'll do it. I've got 2 arms. It's worked most of my life. Okay. So I have 2 caveats before I start speaking. First of all, I'm a retired teacher, so it will behoove you to pay attention. There might be a test at the end. And the second thing is, I'm also a retired therapist, so at any moment I might stop and say, so how is this working for you? How are you feeling? Is there anything you want to share? Anyway, God is everywhere. And I want to start with one of our first principles written by Ernest Holmes. And I love Ernest Holmes because he did all of this work for us so we don't have to. He studied all the major world religions. He went, oh my gosh, look at this. How many similarities there are. So he put it all together, and then all we have to do is read Ernest Holmes. We don't have to go read all this stuff that he read. But anyway, this is first principle. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but it is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. So, I've got good news. Such good news. And the good news is, God really is present, everywhere, always. God or Spirit, or a year ago, Reverend Nita said we can call it Steve if we want to. So whatever name works for you, plug it in. It never takes a vacation, never cancels an appointment, never takes a sick day. When I'm feeling separate from God, it's not God who's moved. I have a sign over my front door in my house in Latin, and as close to Latin as I ever got in Wilcox, where I went to school as a kid, was Spanish that I learned on the playground. So I'm not going to read the Latin to you, but I'm going to read the translation. Invited or uninvited, God is always present. Isn't that cool? We don't have to invite God in. He's already there. It is already there. So, now you want to hear the bad news? As a spiritual being having a human experience, there are too many times we forget that truth. I'm going to just use the pronoun I. I'll speak for myself. Those of you who have done the Enneagram work, I'm a 1. That means I have to solve everything all the time for everyone, everywhere. That's how we operate. So we do have doubts. When life isn't working, we say, oh, either God caused the bad thing or God's nowhere around and we have to fix it. Even in the New Testament, it's reported that Jesus, our master teacher Jesus, said, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? So I figure if even Jesus felt separate, it's okay that we do that too, as long as we figure it out and get back sooner. So as a kid, being raised in Wilcox, I went to the Methodist church. I loved Sunday school because I loved Mrs. Eikenberry, who was my music teacher. What I didn't love were the stupid Bible stories we had to read. And the holy book, the Bible, was treated with such reverence and such, I don't know, mysticism and magic. Everything in there had to be true. And I can remember being particularly upset by the story of Jonah. I was 10 years old. I read that Jonah didn't do what God asked him, so he ended up on a boat, ended up in the water, and ended up in the belly of a big fish for 3 days. The fish expelled him. He brushed himself off and went off to do what God wanted him to do in the first place. Okay, I'm 10 years old. I know about digestion. And I'm thinking, no. So I went huffing home to my very wise father, who said to me, you read fairy tales? Yeah. You read Aesop's fables? Well, yeah. He said, you cannot read a Bible story literally, nor can you read them chronologically because they don't work. But what I want you to learn to do as you read a Bible story is to find the kernel of truth that is in every one. So what's the story of Jonah? Maybe he needed a 3-day cooling off period while he figured out maybe he should really do what God wanted him to do. And maybe it wasn't a fish. Maybe it was a cave. We don't know. But once I learned to read the Bible less critically and more literally, it began working for me. So I'm going to suggest, if you're having trouble with the Old Testament, especially where God is so vengeful and angry and judgmental, you might want to think about, well, what's the story there? So I had a very good friend, Helen Street. We were childhood friends, and she and I used to spend tons of time talking about stuff like how stupid religion is. Because if God is a loving father, why is there hell? If God is eternal, how come he made the world in 7 days? A week, really? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we were roommates in college and continued this line of questioning with one another. We both got married at the end of our freshman year. She moved back to Nogales with her husband, and she called me one day, and she said, oh my God, I have found what we've been looking for our whole lives. Oh yeah, what's that? She said, I was shopping at Safeway in Nogales, and I found a copy of a magazine called Science of Mind. She took it home and devoured it, got herself and me a subscription, and she was right. It changed our lives because that's what we had been looking for all these years. So I thought, okay, I want to know more. So I took classes, and we didn't have I lived in Flagstaff, and we didn't have a religious science church there, but I was reading things not online. We didn't have computers in those ancient days, but I was reading real books. Like, remember those? We held them and everything. You could write in them, turn the page, dog ear it, do whatever. So life went on, and I ended up living in Ojai, California in 1983. And there was a religious science church in Ventura, which was only 15 miles away. So I started going to this church, and oh my gosh, talk about luck being on my side. My first minister was Christian Sorensen. He was a kid. He was the youngest ordained minister ever at that time who had been ordained, but he was a master teacher, master comedian, and loving person. And to this day, I just have so much admiration for him and all that I learned from him. So I decided I wanted to know stuff. So when I retired and moved here, I took practitioner training twice. I didn't want to be a practitioner. I just wanted the information to make my life work better. And it worked for me, almost always. But again, I am the human, so there are those times. But I want to tell you about a friend of mine named Charlotte. When I first moved here, I started a women's group. And so we were all meeting at my house one Wednesday evening, and Charlotte was there, and my friend Ray was there. And Charlotte said, when I paid my rent today, I evicted myself. What? Yeah, I'm sick of living upstairs. I don't want to live there anymore, so I evicted myself today. So Ray, being very lovingly practical, said, do you have a place to live? She said, nope. but I will. Not I might, not I hope, I will. That was Wednesday night. Thursday, Ray went to work. Her boss came in and said, Ray, do you know anyone who's looking for a townhouse? We're moving my mother into a nursing home, and we're looking for someone practical and responsible to move in. Friday, Charlotte was meeting with the owner of the townhouse. They made a deal, and she moved in and lived there 5 years until she moved to Portland to be with her kids. Charlotte. And what I learned from her was she knew that apartment was waiting for her. She didn't hope, she didn't worry, she knew. So, Charlotte was my inspiration for years, and I tried to be like her, and almost always I am, but there are times when I'm not. So here's a not time. A couple of months ago, I wanted a new floor in my bathroom. My house was built in 1968, and it's a wonderful house, but it's getting old and creaky and needs some stuff. So I made arrangements for a new floor. My nephew Frank was with me, and he helped me pick out this really cool tile. And 2 days later, the workmen showed up and ripped out the old tile, ripped out the carpeting, started working on the tile. End of day 2, the tile is mostly done. The only thing that isn't done is the carpet's ripped up, the padding is sticking straight up, and there were those boards with nails where you tack down carpeting. So I went in and, oh, this looks so good. So the workman packs up his tools, and I think what he's getting ready to do, because I'm big on assumptions, he's going to put those tools in his truck to get them out of his way so he can put the carpet back together. Oh no, he got in his truck and left. What? I watched him leave my driveway. It's 3:30. Well, okay, he'll be back tomorrow. Nope. Oh, well, he'll be back tomorrow. Nope. So I thought, okay, this isn't right. I started focusing not on the tile, but on the carpet and the pad that was sticking up. So I made a call to the company, and they said, oh, you have to tell Buck. And if he doesn't answer his phone, just leave a detailed message. So I did. Hey, Buck, blah, 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 blah. Told him what I just told you. Nothing. Next day, I call again. Buck, blah, 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 blah. Now my conversation is getting a little more Yelp reviews. I live alone. I'm old. It's a tripping hazard. Lawsuit. No, I never said lawsuit. And then I started thinking, Buck, that's an acronym, and I wonder what it stands for. So I was making up all of this nonsense in my own head. So I was on the phone with Ray, who lives in California, and I was complaining to her like I complained to Janie, and I complained to anybody in my face. And I got tired of having that attitude. It's exhausting to carry around that junk. So I thought, okay, I need to have an attitude adjustment here. So I sat down, did a meditation, and picked up a book of one of my favorite spiritual books by Emmett Fox, just opened it to a random page. You think God doesn't have a sense of humor? This is what was on the page. Don't focus on your problem, focus on God. Oh. So I did a spiritual mind treatment, knowing that the floor was perfect, it was all going to end A-okay. And 2 days later, open the door at 3 o'clock. There's 3 young worker bees standing there, and guess what? In 40 minutes, ta-da, my floor is perfect. It is gorgeous, and I am quite happy with it. And I've never talked to a real person named Buck. He may not even exist, I don't know. So, what I know about God is God is present everywhere, and how can we utilize this power? It's so easy and it's so hard. It's by believing we can do it. Believing. Believing is seeing. If you don't, whatever you believe is true for you. So choose, I'll speak for myself. I choose my beliefs carefully because they're true. And I had someone say to me once, if you really want to know what you believe, look at your life. How is it working? Do you have enough? Are you living a life of lack? Are you ill? Do you feel like you don't have enough friends? Everything we believe is true, so let's choose our beliefs carefully. And the best news is, we can change our beliefs. I was mad about those Bible stories. Now I'm not mad anymore because I have a different piece of information, so I can change my mind about them. Let's see. Okay. When I was taking a speech class way back in the olden days, my instructor said, you know, no matter how engaging a speaker is, most people can only listen about 10 minutes. And if you want to keep an audience, change the pace. Show a picture, tell a joke, sing a song, do something to get them back. So guess what? We're going to do participation. This is the school teacher in me. Okay, what I want you to do is look around, take a minute, and look at everything you can see that's black. Okay, close your eyes. Remember everything that you just saw that was brown. Okay, open your eyes. How many of you could remember anything brown? Well, you know what? That's because you're an exceptional genius. I've worked with you enough. I know these things. But the truth is, we focus on something to the exclusion of everything else. And there's this wonderful video created by a neurologist who proves this point. And so in the beginning of the video, he says, focus on the young man throwing the basketball. So you're looking at the kid throwing the basketball. You don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to miss? Is he going to do a Harlem Globetrotter move? Who knows? Okay, stop noticing the kid throwing the basketball. Did any of you notice anything unusual in the background? Most of us, no. Did anybody see the guy in the gorilla suit walking around back there? No, because we're noticing the kid with the basketball. But guess what? When you are reminded there's a guy back there in a gorilla suit, guess what? You see a guy in a gorilla suit. That's how life works. We see what we focus on. So if we can change our focus from negative to positive, guess what shows up in our lives? You think it might be something positive? Oh yeah. Okay, my apologies to a few of you who've had to hear this story before. If you've been in my class, I made you hear it at least once. But anyway, for those of you who are new, it has been said that God moves in mysterious ways. Well, God isn't a person without a personality, so it doesn't work in mysterious ways. It just works. So this was one of the most powerful events that I have experienced. And it was about 5 years ago, pre-COVID. I was the treasurer of the board, and I was at the church office working with Janice, Reverend Janice. And all afternoon, we were getting the financials ready for the board meeting next week. And so, didn't have a radio on, of course, didn't have a TV on. We're just working on the task at hand. So on my way home, I realized, oh, I need to go buy dog food. What a surprise. So I went into the parking lot of Safeway at Sunrise and Swan. And I went in, bought my dog food, and as I'm putting it in the back seat of my car, this brand new Ford Thunderbird comes screeching behind me, and this guy yells at me. Well, I'm here to tell you, people don't yell at me much. Not since I got divorced, anyway. So I wasn't afraid. This is so interesting to me. I felt no fear. I was just wondering, did I cut him off in practice? In traffic? What was the deal? So I walked down there. He's getting out of his car, body language just furious. And I walked down there and I said, "Excuse me, I think you just yelled at me." "I did! People like you are causing World War III. Holy moly, people like me, dude. You don't even know me. I buy dog food. What? And he said, okay, I might have to apologize for this, but okay, I'll just say it. "You and that effing bumper sticker on your car." Oh, the egregious bumper sticker? It said coexist. And it was made out of the symbols of the world's major religions, like our banners here. And he said, "Don't you know what's going on?" And I said, "Actually, I don't, because I've been working and Well, this was the day that some suicide bombers entered a newspaper office in Paris and blew themselves and so many people to smithereens. So this man was furious about that, and people like me are causing it. There's some weird logic there somewhere. So I looked at him, and he had a short military-looking haircut. So I said, "Are you in the military?" "Retired Air Force." "Are you old enough to remember World War II?" "Yeah." I said, "So am I. I was a child, but I remember Hitler had a name. Hitler had a face, and Hitler had a location. We knew where he was. Today, we don't know who the enemy is. We don't know the name, we don't know the face. They show up. They blow up newspaper offices in Paris. They blow up subway systems. So it's a whole different world." Yeah. We stood there and talked for maybe, well, it seemed like 3 days. It was probably 5 minutes. And in that time, I found out his first wife had died. His son had died of a brain tumor recently. His second wife had just left and had taken their dog. And he was hurt and he was angry. As we talked, I just watched the vitriol just leave his body and just kind of melt out of the soles of his shoes. And we continued chatting back and forth, and he put his hand out. And I shook his hand, and he said, "My name is Bob. I'm sorry I yelled at you." So we parted company, and I got in my car, and I thought, what was that? You know what it was? God in action. I was in the right place at the right time. I got yelled at that made me curious, so I could go help diffuse a situation. Not because I was a therapist, but I had on the hat that said, "I know God is here." So I felt no fear, no trepidation. I just felt curiosity more than anything. And I often wonder, how did Bob's visit in Safeway go that day? No fist fight, I'm sure, but he was sure headed for one. Oh yeah, God, what a deal. You know what? I had that bumper sticker on my car for quite a while. And I was in Pine Top and somebody ripped it off. So there you go. Do we have any more in the office? Okay. All right. Okay, oh, I hope so. Okay, so where is God? Everywhere. Even when we don't recognize it, even when we don't want to recognize it, God's here. So I'm going to read a poem. One of my favorite poets is Mary Oliver. And I love her because she helps me see details in nature in ways that it never occurs to me to look at them. I'm not going to read the whole poem because it's too long, but I'm going to read the relevant parts. It's called Sitting by the River Clarion, and it's in her book, Evidence, if you're interested. I don't know who God is exactly, but I'll tell you this. I was sitting in the river named Clarion on a water-splashed stone, and all afternoon I listened to the voices of the river talking. Whenever the water struck the stone, it had something to say, and the water itself, and even the mosses trailing under the water. And slowly, very slowly, it became clear to me what they were saying. Said the river, I am part of holiness. And I too, said the stone. And I too, whispered the moss beneath the water. I had been to the river before a few times. Don't blame the river that nothing happened quickly. You don't hear such voices in an hour or a day. You don't hear them at all if selfhood has stuffed your ear. And it's difficult to hear anyway, through all the traffic and ambition. This is the relevant part. If God exists, he isn't just butter and good luck. He's also the tick that killed my wonderful dog Luke. Said the river, imagine everything you can imagine, then keep going. If God exists, he isn't just in churches and mathematics. He's the forest. He's the desert. He's the ice caps that are dying. He's the ghetto and the Museum of Fine Art. He's Van Gogh and Allen Ginsberg and Robert Motherwell. He's the many desperate hands cleaning and preparing their weapons. He's every one of us, potentially. The leaf of grass, the genius, the politician, the poet. And if this is true, isn't that something very important? Yes, it could be that I am a tiny piece of God, and each of you too, or at least of his intention and his hope, which is a delight beyond measure. I don't know how you get to suspect such an idea. I only know that the river kept singing. It wasn't a persuasion. It was all the river's own constant joy, which was better by far than a lecture, which was comfortable, exciting, unforgettable. Thank you, Mary Oliver. So thank you for your time and your attention, and I would like to move right into prayer. So if you're comfortable, please close your eyes. I float into this space of knowing the truth that God is everywhere, everywhere present, known by many names across this world. Yes, Buddha, yes, Jesus, yes, Mohammed, yes, Krishna, yes, me, yes, you. I know God is in the rainbows and the fields of flowers, and today I know God is on both sides of the conflict in the Middle East. I know that God is in the drought-stricken areas of our world. I know that God is in the glaciers that are melting and falling into our sea. I know that God is waiting for us, not with bated breath, but with patience while we decide how we can use this power to make ourselves and our world more whole, more healthy. I am in such a state of gratitude for my life, the fabulous people that inhabit my world. Thank you so much for everyone in this community, this CSLT community, who makes it work each and every week. All of the work that the board does behind the scenes, the electronic setup each Sunday morning that works without a hitch almost always. I am so grateful for Sharon, who has done such a fabulous job of having an interesting, different speaker each week. I speak my word knowing that each syllable is true, and I know there's nothing I need to do except release my word into law and know that each syllable has been, will be, and is acted upon. And in this joy and in this truth, I simply say, and so it is. So thank you.